Hello, today we're going to talk about Chinese mythology, specifically on deities. So what is Chinese mythology? Chinese mythology is a collection of cultural history, folktales, and religious tradition that has been passed down for centuries in oral or written form. The reason why I selected this topic is because Chinese mythology provides reasoning to many celebrations, as well as informing the people of their culture and values. In this presentation, we will mostly be focusing on a few deities from Chinese mythology. The first one is going to be the Jade Emperor, Yu Huang. The Jade Emperor is known as the ruler of heaven, and is one of the most high-ranking gods in Chinese mythology. His origins vary from being a mortal and becoming a god to becoming in existence when the universe created. So he's pretty much like the ruler of all the gods, so everyone just listens to him. One of the most popular folktales that include the Jade Emperor is actually the origin of the zodiac animals. So, the Jade Emperor had invited all the animals to his palace, but only 12 animals showed up, and these 12 animals were actually the honorary members of the zodiac. So, the second goddess we're going to talk about is Chang'e. So, she is the goddess of the moon, and she's honored during the Mid-Autumn Festival for the successful harvest of the past year and the reunion of family members. Mid-Autumn Festival, Shangchu Qi. The Mid-Autumn Festival focuses on the people reflecting on the past year with the family and friends over food and festival activities. Some of these activities include placing an offering to Chang'e to bless. Offerings range from fruits, sweets, especially mooncakes. So Chang'e is actually part of an immortal elixir myth. She pretty much took this little potion that her husband had given her, and in many different versions, there's two different versions. So in one, she is depicted as a greedy woman who stole the elixir and she actually drinks it, and she goes to the moon. And then in another version, she's like really in love with her husband, and her husband's apprentice tries to steal the potion, but she ends up drinking it, and then she floats to the moon, and she gets stuck there to never see her husband again. The third god we're going to talk about today is Pangyu, which is the god of creation. So he was actually born out of a cosmic egg, which suddenly just began cracking after thousands of years. When the cosmic egg broke, it also brought the creation of the universe. So Pangyu then cut the yin and yang principles and separated them to keep balance. And then by doing that, he actually created Earth. So yin turned into the earth and yang into the sky. After that, he just began adding details like mountains, valleys, forests, and then after he died, his body actually became one with the planet. So his body parts became rivers, trees, the sun, and the moon. And then the third god we're going to talk about today is the Dragon King Long Wang. The Dragon King rules over the ocean and rivers. He is celebrated for bringing good weather and is considered a giver of rain. Long Wang does not answer to anybody except the Jade Emperor. So alongside his brothers, the Dragon King oversees the ocean. Ao Guang oversees the east, Ao Qing the south, Ao Run the west, and Ao Shun the north. A lot of people consider the Dragon King to have qualities such as being aggressive, but he is also a symbol of good luck. This is going to be about Guanyin. So Guanyin is the goddess of mercy and compassion. She offers her protection to the ones who are suffering. The origins of Guanyin come from a mixture of folklore, the Hindu god Avalokitesvara, and Buddhism. Guanyin has many origin stories and is part of many myths and legends. An interesting origin myth is the legend of Miao Shan. So Miao Shan is pretty much born into royalty. Her dad's a king, and her mother is Lady Yin. So when Miao Shan was born, she pretty much started like reciting Buddhist prayers. And so as she grew up, she just realized she wanted to be a nun. Her dad, however, wanted her to marry a rich husband. But Miao Shan would only agree to the marriage if it was all three things, and that's the suffering of age, suffering of death, and suffering sickness. The king couldn't find anyone that would solve these 3 things, and Miao Shan was kind of just like, a doctor would solve all 3, but the king didn't want her to marry a doctor because he wouldn't be rich. So he kind of like gave up, and he let Miao Shan like try to join the temple, but he made things difficult for her. So he would tell like the monks like, hey, give her like the hardest jobs, or give her a bunch of chores. But Miao Shan was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna do everything. So the king kind of gets frustrated, and he sets the temple on fire. And Miao Shan, she puts out the fire with her bare hands, and she ends up having like no burns. And so the dad's just like, oh my gosh, she's a demon. So after that, he sentenced her to death. Yeah, his own daughter. He sentenced her to death, and the executioner tries to kill her with like a knife, an axe. He couldn't do it because the knife would break and then the axe would break. So he ends up trying to use his hands. But Miao Shan feels like she doesn't want him to get karma, so she ends up voluntarily killing herself by taking the executioner's karmic guilt. Because she does that, she ends up in hell. So when she's in hell, she sees all these souls suffering, and she decides like, I'm just going to release my good karma to save these people. And so those souls actually end up going to heaven, and while she's doing that, like, it kind of creates a small paradise in hell, which catches the king of hell's attention, and he's kind of like, oh my god. So he kicks her out before like she ruins anything else. And when she arrives on Earth, she arrives as an enlightened being of Guanyin. And that is one of her origin stories. And so that was my last goddess. And so Chinese mythology consists of folklores, legends, and deities. They provide history on culture and values, and that's why I chose this topic. And then the last page is just references. Thank you. Goodbye.